there's one thing this city's taught me. You can put a price on anything. Secrets, reputations, a life. And trust? If you have to ask, you can't afford it. But then I suppose none of that matters when you're me. After all, when did I ever pay for anything?
Of all the stealth franchises that gamers have cozied up to over the years, it would be easy to make a case that the Thief games are among the most overlooked and underrated. Released a few months after Metal Gear Solid, the shadowy escapades of Garrett didn't go unnoticed, but over time, the diminishing quality of the sequels and the disillusion of Looking Glass Studios helped Thief slip out of the public eye. After having tremendous success with other properties it acquired from its purchase of Eidos, Square Enix saw fit to reboot the franchise, introducing Garrett's exploits to a generation of gamers who have little concept of what a stealth game really is, and reuniting him with a dedicated fan base a decade after the last entry into the franchise. With the core philosophy of this niche genre gradually being compromised by the sales demands of AAA game development, can this old dog teach the industry a few new tricks, or has Garrett merely arrived only to abscond with the wallets of his biggest fans? Thief places players in a sprawling steampunk metropolis known as the City, which, after a mysterious ritual is interrupted by Garrett and his protege Aaron, is ravaged by a plague known as the Gloom. When Garrett comes to, he finds that Aaron has perished and the city is at its knees with the citizens united under a man named Orion, who is trying to rid the city of the Baron who oversees it and eliminate the Gloom. It's a bit of a remix of the elements that made up the narratives of previous games, with corrupt politicians, shadowy occult orders, and, of course, plenty of shiny stuff for Garrett to get his hands on. The problem is that Garrett himself isn't exactly a silver-tongued swindler. Instead, he dryly pontificates on the city's woes and his predisposition to lift anything with a luster.
Robbing the dead of their valuables and their dignity. A thief-taker generally exceeds his own reputation. Time to steal that ring back.
The plot itself unfolds in an uneven manner, with the final act unfolding quickly and clumsily, making it similar to watching a racing thoroughbred breaking a leg and tumbling 50 feet from the finish line, throwing up clouds of dust, and leaving its jockey a bloody, crumpled mess. There is never a satisfying build to the major plot points in Thief. They are just thrown out without much in the way of foreshadowing or dramatic flair. Ultimately, both fans and newcomers will likely not list the plot among Thief's strong points. Like the previous entry, Deadly Shadows, this installment allows players to explore the city between missions as well as tackle side missions and steal anything of value that isn't bolted down. From the clock tower that Garrett calls home, the city is split between districts that unlocked as players progress. A jaunt around the city quickly shows players that Garrett's kleptomania isn't his only character fault, as he's also prone to eavesdropping. Loose-lipped denizens give players clues to secret loot, as well as adding a few narrative flourishes. The city is also host to a number of secrets, and keen players will find themselves stumbling across hidden passages, bookshelf switches, wall safes behind paintings, tunnels, and traps to boot. Maps can be located that point players in the direction of some cleverly concealed spoils. All of this makes early exploration of the city a real treat, but it only takes a mission or two for the luster to fade. Many secret areas don't really seem to lead to any kind of exceptional reward. The game makes a point of letting you know that you've discovered something intentionally tucked away with an audio cue, but the rewards are often the same stupid trinkets that populate every other area of the game. Also, over the course of the game, navigating the same streets, dodging or bludgeoning the same guards, and visiting the same landmarks becomes tiring and tedious. Many players will pick over each and every home before receiving a specific job from Basso, Garrett's contact, necessitating a return trip. More vexing is how lifeless the city feels. Thief makes a point of trying to explain its empty streets away with the gloom and the city-wide lockdown, but nearly every home that Garrett finds its way into is unoccupied. Those who are in the streets often stand in one place and follow a very short path. Many of them don't even speak, making your time wandering the streets seem like you're taking part in a steampunk parody of Westworld. Missions are generally a bit more engaging, offering greater challenges and more intriguing environments. Missions are linear, at best offering a few paths to your next objective. Series fans will mourn the more open areas of past titles, but there are a few sections which evoke some of the older game's design, like one late game mission that has you infiltrating a huge estate and making your way to its study.
Hey? I heard you! Someone's here! I'll find the friggin' bastard!
There's another disappointing flaw that rears its ugly head. While guards can be dangerous, they never feel cunning or autonomous. Guards can be 3 feet away staring in Garrett's direction, but as long as he looms among the shadows, he'll remain undetected. Likewise, the simple patrol paths that guards follow make stalking them and discreetly taking them out really simple. Being discovered in Thief is usually the result of being seen by a pet bird or a dog that draws attention to your presence, or bumbling on a surface littered with broken glass. If you happen to be detected while in an elevated position, guards will flounder around in the area below in a flustered alert state. Levels are designed around this unsatisfactory AI, so there is still some challenge while playing Thief, but they're anything but satisfying. Thankfully, Garrett's toolbox is better suited for stealing than fighting, so combat should be avoided at all costs. While players can easily pummel a single guard with Garrett's blackjack, facing more than one foe is usually a death sentence. Garrett's bow is also a better tool than a weapon, with its long draw time and limited supply of lethal arrows. That is, until he gets his grubby hands on exploding blast arrows. Thief does make some major strides forward when it comes to giving players control over their game experience, and the importance of this innovation for the stealth genre cannot be overstated. The menu features a number of UI and difficulty options that can be toggled to provide players with an unprecedented amount of control over how much or how little information they have concerning their surroundings. An icon that tells players whether or not they are completely concealed in the dark can be toggled on, the minimap can be turned on and off, how health is displayed can be altered, objective markers can be turned off, and even the glint given off by trinkets can be turned off. Also, the new focus feature can be turned off as well. Focus helps highlight traps, collectibles, switches, breakables, and obstacles. With a few upgrades, it'll also allow you to deliver punishing blows with the blackjack, hasten your lockpicking, move silently, and even slow time. It's a handy tool for newcomers, and even those familiar with the series will find it useful for things like disarming traps. Also, easing newcomers in is the swoop ability, which lets Garrett move swiftly and silently for a short distance. In addition to upgrading the focus ability, Garrett can buy upgrades for his bow and clothing, as well as perk bestowing trinkets from a Walter White-esque merchant. When running on next-gen console hardware or a powerful PC, Thief delivers thick atmosphere and beautiful lighting. The slate rooftops, cobblestone streets, timber roof beams, and iron pipework that make up the city create a distinct atmosphere, and the perpetual night and heavy fog that looms around the ornate street lamps in the city lend themselves to an appropriately seedy and pestilent tone. The areas in which missions take place provide some stunningly detailed environments to turn over for plunder. Garrett moves with a sense of weight, and his inertia can be felt as he climbs and sprints. This weight appropriately distinguishes itself from the light and fast movements of a first-person shooter that the unacquainted might mistake this game for. While Garrett's slender fingers look as though they would be better suited for modeling Tiffany jewelry rather than purloining it, watching their delicate animations as they turn the knob of a safe provide far better characterization for his character than his irritating dialogue. Unfortunately, as with the rest of the game, there are a few warts.
We must prove ourselves worthy! Stand together, friends. Reject the blacktops. Spit on their laws.
NPCs can look painfully dull, textures break down when the game decides to zoom in for lockpicking or peeking around corners, and lip syncing can be an issue in cutscenes.
Oh, sir! Bring my freak of nature back to me, Mr. Thief. Your pockets await my coin.
Most irritating is the way the frame rate dips upon entering a new area while assets presumably are still being loaded in. Thief isn't exactly a terrible game, but it does let the series' legacy down. The moody, atmospheric locales are not enough to distract from the AI's transparent routines. The hours you spend tackling side missions and sniffing out every secret nook and cranny in the city only provide more time to reflect on how staged and lifeless it feels. And the highly customizable difficulty doesn't incentivize enduring the clumsy mess of a narrative again. There are many brilliant moments in this reboot, but the filler between might diminish your drive to seek out the next. That said, there is hope that a follow-up might clean up the rough edges and excise the dull filler, making Thief the bona fide classic it should be.
Oh, now I've lost you again. Where have you gone? Oh, pinch my nipples a bit, would you? Oh! That was lovely.